Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI 5 Launchpad training. In last class we discussed about how to implement extension points for a standard SAP UI 5 app. We saw an example document for a sample timesheet application for a sample requirement, and we also discussed how we can really implement such a requirement into the system. We also talked about SAP Fiori Cloud SDK from SAPfioritrials.com. In this session, we will go ahead and discuss more about such a requirement to be fulfilled now with more type of enhancements. So let's go ahead to the system and try to quickly look at what exactly we have done. Also, I'll try to frame what we exactly did in yesterday's class in a nutshell so that some of you who have missed the bus can really make it understand end to end. So I will first log into our SAP Web IDE account, which is there in the cloud for SAP UI 5 Cloud SDK. So let's get started with this. So I click on Get Started. Now let me come to PPT and try to explain you what exactly we did. So when you look at a standard SAP Fiori app, let's say this is a standard SAP Fiori application. This standard SAP Fiori application includes lot of artifacts like view and controllers, as well as there are different other artifacts. The major enhancement which we typically do is always done with respect to view or controller. Now, as far as the view is concerned, there are three ways you can really talk to a view. So one is called view extensions. This is mainly targeting for enhancing the view. By adding your custom controls into it. Let's say you want to add a new input field, completely new input field, you can do it with view extensions. Second is come as view modification. This use case is required in cases where you would like to modify the view by changing the property of existing controls. For example, if I want to hide a particular control, I can use view modifications. The third type of changes which you can really do for a view is view replacements. In case of view replacements, you are basically changing the whole view with a completely new view. Now within this you have two options. So within this you have further two options, option 1 and option 2. Completely two options you have. First option is about changing the view or implementing completely an empty view, or maybe your own view. You can write your own view. Option number 2 which you have is make a copy of standard SAP view and then change the functionality wherever you desire. Now we also discussed in yesterday's class why this approach is not recommended. The moment you make a copy of a standard SAP object, you are decoupling it from standard SAP changes in future. For example, you made a copy of a SAP view and then you changed it as per your need. Now what happens? SAP delivered you a bug fix for that view. The changes which SAP delivered will not come because you made a complete replacement of that view as your custom view. But typically views does not have bugs. Why? Because they are more like declarative views. They doesn't contain processing logic. The bugs always arise, 90% of the bugs arise in the processing logic, which is typically controller or your OData processing logic. So we don't really change the processing logic of a view, or especially SAP won't change the processing logic of the view as far as the views are concerned. Okay, it doesn't really have a change into the SAP processing logic for the view. SAP won't do it because they know this is the view. They in a support pack or in a change or in a bug fix, they don't really enhance a view. They don't add a new control in a bug fix. Okay, it's more about bug fixes. So that's why this approach is still good. Now comes the controller related changes. How can you really change the controller? So there are basically two types of, again, options for the controller. Let me explain these options. Option number, actually it's called controller changes itself. So it's called controller replacement always. But in this, there are two options. Now, when it comes to controller replacement, let's try to understand how the replacement works. What happens is the custom controller which we use to override standard SAP controller follows below rules. Now, if you look at a standard SAP controller, let's say SAP standard dot controller dot JS. Now, this controller is standard SAP controller. Let's say this is the definition. It has a method called onInit, and then it has a method called do something. This is SAP standard controller. Okay. Now what you did is you in the enhancement, you actually told SAP that I want to replace it with my controller. What SAP does, they won't replace this controller with your controller. So now you have your custom controller. In this custom controller, what you can do is you can always override the existing method. So if you create a method with the same name in your custom controller, this functionality will be executed instead of standard SAP functionality. So this is by default inheritance from standard SAP controller always. Okay, it's an inheritance from SAP standard. So when you do the same method name in your custom controller, what it does is it overrides. So there are two things, guys. Override means it completely runs your own code. This will run completely your own code, guys. Instead of standard SAP method, it will replace that. Basically at runtime, it will replace the standard SAP method with your method. So your method will get executed provided the method name is same. How you are doing this overriding? By keeping the method name same as what SAP has in their controller. Option number one. So when you run the code, what output you get? If I just write a sample thing in this console.log, if I just say standard SAP do something, if I just do a console log here in this particular method, and in my custom method, what I do is I do something of the sort. Let's say this one, custom do something. Can anybody tell me what will be the output when I run this application? Anybody? What will be my output when this do something is executed? It will be this. It will print this thing. Second thing. This is what will be printed on the screen. Basically, it completely overrides the standard implementation. Now, coming back to the hook methods. So we all know there are four hook methods in every controller: onInit, onExit, do before rendering, and do after rendering. These four methods, on after rendering and on before rendering, these four methods we have, which are standard hook methods in every controller. From the first course, we all know that these four methods are an exception. Okay, These four methods are an exception. So what happens is when you try to write this in your custom controller on init. So in this on init, let's say you're writing console.log custom init called, and for the one which is SAP delivered, let's say SAP delivers you this particular code, standard init called. Okay, standard init called, custom init called. Now when the init is called, can anybody tell me what will be the output? What will be the output? Anybody? What will happen in case of standard hook methods? So ideally, for as other hook methods are happening, okay, as other functionality methods are happening, it should display you this second thing, ideally, because that's what happens with other methods. Now hook methods are an exception to this. In case of hook methods, what happens is SAP will execute first the standard delivered SAP hook method, and then it calls your custom delivered hook method, guys. That's what SAP does. Okay, so this will be an method which will be called after standard SAP hook method. This was one of the questions Deep asked me in an email which he has shot today in the morning. I really did not get time, Deep, today to look at your mail. I just looked it right at 8 o'clock. So I still need to look at all your requirements which you have posted to me. So give me some time. But this was one of the questions which I just looked at it, which you have asked about on after rendering method. What will happen in case of on after rendering? So all the hook methods, guys, what happens for all the hook methods? It will first call the standard SAP implementation, and then it calls your custom implementation for hook method always. So it will never override, but instead it will join the code. Okay, the code will be joined with standard code. That's what happens. Okay, so when you run this application for init, it will first invoke a standard init called, and then it will print custom init called. This will be the output when you run it. Okay, that's what happens in case of custom methods, guys. So hope you all clear about controller replacement, what exactly controller replacement means. Okay, now as I mentioned, when you replace the whole controller, okay, now in this also you saw that there was an option called copy and change, make a complete copy and change. Yesterday we saw that. Yeah, what happens in that case? You're actually replacing all the methods, which is not a good idea. You should only touch the methods where you really want a change to be done, like we did in yesterday's class. We only changed get field info method, where we were really getting the information for these fields which were created dynamically. Only we changed that method, overwritten that method, nothing else, because this way it is more stable. All the code which is already working, functionality is working beautifully, if we don't touch that, we only change what we really need a change to be done, and that's what makes it stable. When you saw when I made a complete copy and replaced everything, it really disturbed the whole thing, and somehow I was not able to come out of it. But the moment I tried the another way around, just replacing the only one single method, it really worked out. Now there is one more option over here. What SAP does, SAP is very smart. When SAP write controller methods, they foresee that their end users, basically SAP customers, would need to change the code at certain points. Okay, need to change the code at certain points. SAP also provide hooks. Don't confuse these hooks with hook methods. Hook methods are different. On init, on exit, on before rendering, on after rendering. Different. This is nothing but exit points, just like your, body concept in conventional ABAP programming. This is an exit concept, user exit kind of concept. Okay, where you can hook in, where you can latch in your own custom functionality in middle of standard SAP implementation. That's what SAP does. So what they do, let's say this is SAP delivered method. I thought this is very important, guys, to cover some theory around it so that you guys can understand what I did yesterday, because I found, myself not convinced the way I conducted yesterday's class. It was too much in hurry burry, and I really looked at the video again as a end user, as putting myself into your shoes, and I realized the way I conducted yesterday's class was the worst class I ever had, because I just coded myself with my understanding and showed you the output, but really did not give you the relevant gyan which you really need to understand the depth of it. Okay, so I thought, let's organize this session in a better way and try to bring you closer to what is happening behind the scenes once again with the theory aspect, and then take you to the system and explain you once again what's exactly going on over there. That's my feel. So I always evaluate what I actually do. Okay, so I always, sometime when I don't get such a nice feeling from inside, I always evaluate my recording myself, and I did evaluated my recording, yesterday's class recording myself as a student, and I realized it's so tricky. I mean, how these guys, really coding, trying things, saying it's working, not working, working, not working, and then, at the end he somehow made it work and showed the output and he left. Yeah, that really does not help you. Okay, that really does not help me. And if I am at your place, I would give an honest feedback. Anubhav, this is not the way. I did not understood anything. Okay, so you should say it upfront, guys. If you don't understand something which I'm teaching you, I should really work on it, and I should really bring the value to you rather than just delivering an output. Then there's no difference between me and other trainers. Okay, so let's go back and try to understand what SAP does. They're very smart. So what they do is they write some implementation. Let's say they say console.log and then say hello world. And then what SAP does is, or maybe, what they do is they have a variable. Let's say text to be displayed equals to hello world. Okay, this is what they have, and now they are just putting this text value in console. This is, let's say, SAP, a simple example of standard SAP implementation, guys. Okay, this is a simple implementation. Let's say SAP delivered method hello world, and they're saying console log text, display the text. When you run this application, you see hello world on the console. Perfect. SAP, I'm SAP, let's say. Okay, now I'm SAP, I'm sitting a developer at SAP, and I'm writing this. Now I foresee that my user who is going to be using this application may want to change this text which is getting printed on the screen. Okay, may want, okay, may want to change this text which is getting printed on the screen rather than my text. Okay, or I just say hello SAP. Yeah, this is what SAP is saying to you, hello SAP. Now I as SAP feel that my customer may not like it, because they have their own brand, they have their own logo, they have their own name. They want to say hello IBM, or hello Infosys, or hello mm, hello Tata LXI, or hello TCS, whatever they like. What SAP does is they write a special if condition and then say they say O controller dot custom code. Okay, custom code is not equals to, okay, or just this, they just say this. Okay, they put a if condition where they say a custom code, or basically this custom code is nothing but the method name. Okay, now they just say a custom method here, Okay, they just say the custom method, and now they make a call to this custom method, o controller, or they may just say this dot custom method, and in this they are passing this text variable which they have, and then they just also whatever output this custom method is producing, they are setting it here. This is what exactly a enhancement point, guys, which SAP is giving it to you embedded inside the methods. Okay, embedded inside the standard method. Now what happens when this code reaches to you? When this code reaches to you and you execute it at your end, there is no implementation called custom method implemented at this point of time. There is no implementation at all. When there is no implementation, this if condition fails, and this piece of code never gets executed, never ever. Okay, now imagine this is done in standard controller. Guys, there are too many things. Try to understand this. This is a standard SAP delivered controller. Now in this SAP did one method here. In this they are just setting some text and printing it. Before that they are also checking is there any custom implementation exist. So this code is what is doing is checking that is there any custom code exist. If yes, execute that. If no, skip this part anyways, and then it just prints hello SAP. Now this code came to us. We are smart. Now we have got a nice training from Anubhav, who has already taught us that yes, there may be an hook method, there may be an extension point in the controller as well, which I can really look at and change something. Okay, so what I do is I just implement extension project now, and I just say extend this controller. So I provide controller extensions. Okay, and in my custom controller I implement this method what they have given him. That's this name, custom method. And this method anyways, SAP has already passing this argument text to me. I can receive this LV text now. And what I can do is I can just set this, replace this, what SAP is having the text. I can also check this text. I can perform some operations on this text. Whatever is the import parameter, I can perform some operations onto it. I can also say LV text equals to whatever is SAP is giving. As an add-on to that, I want to say hello SAP, whatever SAP is giving basically, and I say hello IBM. Let's say I work for IBM. So now I did this and say return LV text. And that's basically my implementation I have given for this method. Now when you run this extension project, system execute this code, it checks is there any custom method implemented in the extension point with an extension extended controller. Yes, this time this if condition holds true, the control is then floated, control is then passed to this custom method. Okay, the control is then passed to this custom method. When the control comes to this custom method, it also brings this argument which SAP has given to you. This argument comes to you by default. So we now concatenating this existing thing plus hello IBM and returning this. The moment you return this, yet the existing text variable now got changed with concatenation of what was exactly there from SAP side plus my also my extended input. So this text now got changed to hello SAP space hello IBM. So the final print which is now happens with your app is hello SAP space hello IBM. That's what you get as a final outcome of this method. So that's called controller hooks. Don't confuse these hooks with the hook methods. They are controller hooks which are exit points of standard SAP methods, which helps you to enhance or change certain parameters, certain values in standard method. And that's what we did yesterday for favorites method. Now with this knowledge, let me go back to our yesterday's example and I show you how exactly I did all of these things in this context. So hope it is clear to all of you now here this concept. Let me take you back to our implementation one more time, and then we will see what exactly is happening behind the scenes, what we did yesterday. Yeah, so that you can understand. So base class object calling the subclass method, no, it's not that. It's not base class method calling subclass. It's just that you have a implementation check. Is this exit implemented? There is an exit point actually. Is this exit point implemented or not? If this exit point is implemented, call this exit, call the custom code. This is just a hook where you can latch in your functionality. It's just like user exits which you have, or the body concept what you have in conventional ABAP, where you have a body implementation. If the body implementation is active, your custom code gets called finally. Okay, so it's like that. So those who are familiar with SAP ABAP programming language, you may know that user exit or body concept. So it's like that. Don't confuse it with calling base class, calling subclass. No, it's just an exit point which is in standard SAP code, where they give you the control and they give you also the authority to change their variables, and you can actually do that in your custom code. And that's what exactly we did yesterday. So let me go back, click over here on this cloud action, get started with my web IDE, so that I can show you the implementation what we had yesterday. So I click on get started and I just enter my credentials, and you see it's launching SAP web IDE for me. It will launch web IDE for me in a while. It'll first launch, I guess, the launchpad, and then we should be able to get into the web IDE as well. Yeah, so it has got the launchpad. Now I just go here on the settings button and go to develop apps, and I go to my content. Oops, nothing is displayed yet. Fine, no problem. I just select timesheet. It should now launch SAP web IDE for me. Yeah, so say launch web IDE. It will launch web IDE and our project which we created yesterday. So let's look back each requirement one more time. So I'll open the document which I had yesterday. So first requirement was WBS element. Do not want them to manually enter this, but they want them to select the WBS element only. It should not be editable. It should be F4 only. So what happens in this case? So the view which we saw, standard SAP view, was not having a property for the field called F4 help only property, which is responsible for making one single field in a way that we can really change it. So I made a complete replacement of the custom view, S31 view to a custom view, and then I scroll down to the panel where we have all the fields which are being created dynamically. So you see all the input fields are being created here dynamically with a data model. This is a JSON data model with aggregation binding. They are creating these input fields dynamically. Then I added a new property called value help only, and I bounded it with the joker property. But this joker property does not exist in my accounting info model, which is being created in the controller. Okay, it was not part of it. So I supposed to change the controller code, but I should not touch standard SAP controller at the same time. So what I did is I implemented a custom controller, and in this I have given the same method name which was there in the main controller. So in S31 controller, there was a method called get profile fields. Let me show you again in the actual app. In the controller S31, there was a method called get profile fields. Yes, here it is, where they are actually creating this data model, which is then creating the input fields on the screen. So this data model, you can see it's just setting the data model, all the profile fields it is setting here, which this is just a JSON. They are constructing a JSON with all the fields which they want on the screen. Yeah, so that's what they're doing here. So no, this has nothing to do with enhancement points, Charu. So what exactly I did is, with my JavaScript knowledge, which whatever I learned with the first course, with that I somehow understood that they're dynamically creating these fields on the screen. They are not straightforward fields. So what I did is I come and explored these methods. I looked at this accounting model and I found this method. They have actually created this data model with a collection of JSON for all the fields which are visible on the screen. So this collection, this JSON, it's an internal table, and this internal table gets transformed into UI fields, input fields on the screen. So in this internal table, I have added a property called uh, I have added a property. So you see this is a standard implementation. In this there is no property for value help only. There is no joker property which we are attaching to value help only on the view. So I overwrite this same method. So method name in the standard controller was get profile fields. So what I did is in my custom controller I put the same method name, which means I'm overriding this functionality with my functionality, and then I copy pasted entire method as it is from the standard. I went ahead and I added in this internal table an extra field called joker, and then this joker is connected to my custom view. If you look at here with the value help only property in all the input controls which are created dynamically, value help only, and then you see counting model arrow joker. We connected this binding, and you all know the binding from the first course. I'm not repeating that here. So you see joker, and now this is a temporary variable. What I'm doing now is checking if the name of the field, you can see they're also setting the field name here F. So I checked if the technical name of the field, not the label. Never check the label because it may be language dependent. If you run it in German language, this WBS element will be something else. Translation would be something. So I check the technical field name. If it is POS ID, make the temp joker property value to true, and that's what gets into this internal table. And this internal table then is responsible for creating a data model called accounting info model, and from this accounting info model these fields on the view are being created, and you see the property joker. So that's why, so now it's a typical case of this one where I write the same method with the same name. So there was a method called uh, get fields. What was the name of the method? Let me show you again. So method name was get profile fields. So this was a method like do something in the parent controller, basically in a standard SAP controller, but I write the same method in the custom controller. So it's like overriding, and then I tweak the code to just introduce a new property called joker, which will which will control the value help only property for every input field. And then I check if it is for WBS element, make this to true. For rest all the fields it will be false. This value will be false. Yeah, you can see here the logic which we have written. Now this model gets created finally, and then the moment the binding happens, all the fields gets created on the screen, and hence you will see only WBS element. The F4 help only was the only way of getting the data. You cannot manually type in the data. Same thing we did for another field, which was activity type field. We wanted to make it read only, but for read only I checked it in the view. There was a property which is standard SAP view was using. So there you can see there was a read only field. Where was it? I think, yeah, here it is. You can see enabled properties attached to the read only property. So whether the input field is enabled or disabled. Yeah, so it's already connected to read only property of my accounting info model. And if I come here accounting info model, you can see there is a read only property here which is taking R, comparing it on fly with a string value true or false, and then setting the boolean value to the, this is JavaScript way of writing if condition on fly. So if my R value, which is a string, is equals to true, a string comparison, send the boolean value as an output to this read only property. Yeah, so what I did is I checked if it is activity type field, set the R value to true, boolean, not boolean true, is string true, because here you see there is a if condition to check is string true, and then based on that read only got changed, and based on read only property you will see the behavior for enabled property of the UI control is being controlled. Yeah. So that was what made the activity type field read only, and also we set the default value. Now you may want to set it with OData, so we can also look at the OData now, guys, and see how can we really default this value with something else. So if you just scroll up a little bit, you will also find the data model, which is the OData model. How can I really access the OData model? You can see here they are actually getting this model exchange get data. Some data is they are reading in, so we can go back and now debug this and see how can we really set the value, default value, not a hard-coded value wholly, but something which is coming from real data model. So I select it here and say run, and let me just check this get profile fields. So I press F12, and we will just see if something we can set it from OData, the activity type, rather than the hard-coded value. So let me just see if it can really hit the breakpoint. So now if you want to debug your custom controller, press Control O and type here your controller name. Um, Let me just look at it. What is the name? S31 custom 1. So S31 custom 1 is the name. So S31 dot custom 1. Oops, I just say custom 1. Oops, I don't see it. Let me just copy the name S31 custom 1 controller. Right click, just go for rename, and from here I copy the controller. I think it is not even loaded yet. Yeah, we didn't even reach to the second screen, so it's not even loaded. If I search for it, I think it's not even loaded yet because we didn't reach to that screen yet. Let me click on create button. Yes, now you can see I already had a breakpoint yesterday, so now it is loaded the controller. Since I'm navigating to the screen, view gets instantiated by the router, and it also instantiates the controller, and hence it is calling this code now. So here in this code, if I just scroll up a little bit, I should be able to see the OData model, because that's what is being used to build these fields dynamically. So you can see there is this model, application get model, get data. So let's try this object in the console. So can we see some data around the data which is coming from applications? So you can see selected dates. Now there is this data may not be so useful, so maybe we'll see some other data if at all we can. So you can see the partner, the person number is also there. Let me try this one, the partner. No, it's not really coming up. Maybe we'll just check D only, D object. Yeah, so D object is actually containing all the fields. It's just containing all the fields. So maybe can I somehow get the OData model access so that I can read the data? So let me check in standard SAP controller, how are they accessing the OData model? So I go back and check S31 controller.js. This is standard SAP implementation, and you see there is an object called this.o service. Okay, this.o service. I think this is how they are actually you know getting the object for OData service, this.o service. So let me try this in the console. Can I access this.o service? No, it's not an object, it's not available. So then let's see, is there any other way I can somehow access the OData object, basically my OData service object, and read the values for this particular person number? Yeah, this particular person number, they must be doing it somewhere. Let's look at standard SAP code. Can we somehow access the OData for this application so that we can get the value? Yes, somehow from the binding context we will be getting the value. So I'm just trying to see if I can access the OData object. Maybe this one, a dot this dot o application dot get model. Let me try this one, guys. Can I get somehow? No, maybe I just search for this. Yeah, this is actually a window object. It's not even the controller object. Can I check s dot o application dot get model? Yeah, undefined. What is the model object name? Maybe this one, create a screen model. If I try to access this model object, so basically this is I'm trying to access the OData model object. Yes, you can see there is some model object called create screen model, and let me just try to say get property, and you can see some data coming up, guys. So this model, what they have is having some data similar to this. You may be having multiple models. So when SAP designed this application, they have lots of models where they have different data. So now here you see we are recording time for 6th of February to 19th of sorry, the weekend is 19th of February and week start is this, and we're recording the data for 6th of February, and we actually got the date here, yeah, in this particular create screen model. Similarly, there are a lot of other models which a standard SAP application has, which you can really access in your um, in your custom method which you have written. Yeah, so create screen model is one. So similarly, you can just search, you know, a dot application dot get model, how many calls are there, what type of different models standard SAP application has, and then with that you can drive some data, or somehow you can also get an access to OData object. So I think you can get an access to OData object, and then with this OData model object you can actually uh, make a call to the OData service. Okay, so that is also possible, and then read the desired data from the backend system and set that as a default. This is all you can do it. So you need to explore a little bit the standard app, how standard app is having the data models created. This is all your expertise of SAP Fiori, which allows you to do so, which we learned in the past course, the JavaScript coding, the model objects, you know, all these variables. You need to explore a lot the standard application to somehow drive the object of OData object, and with that make a call to the backend OData service to get some more data accordingly. Yeah, and then set as a default value. So with that, we fulfilled these two requirements. One is was making to activity type as read only by changing the method and hard coding the data, and then WBS element also by introducing a new property called Joker in the model, and then binding it with the value help only property. With that, the moment you click, it only becomes F4 enabled. It doesn't really help you to get the type in the data at all. Yeah, so these two requirements we fulfilled with this. Now third requirement was removing the favorites button. So there was a favorite button available at the bottom here, that we removed. How did we do that? For that, we this time SAP has helped us. So in a standard controller, what SAP did was they've given us an hook method. Okay, they've given us a hook method, and the name of that hook method was this extension. Ext means extension, hook change header footer options. So if I show you this in standard SAP controller, the implementation for this, see what SAP is doing. They are having a method where they are setting the footers. Okay, they are setting the header and footer options. In this method, they foreseen that SAP customer, their customers, which are us, we can probably want to change this footer and we want to tweak the buttons probably. So they foreseen this and they've given an exit point to us. In this exit point, they are passing us an object of finished product. With this object contains all the buttons. Okay, and they're passing these set of buttons object to us in the extension if we implement this extension provided. So here they're checking if the extension is implemented, then call the extension, otherwise proceed normally. The moment you implement this extension, they are sending you an object which has all the buttons inside, and then they're replacing what we tweak back with the original. So the same example which I took, a simple one where we were actually replacing the text with the actual text passed to it and received from it. Yeah, and in this custom implementation, we are basically appending it. We are changing it in our custom implementation. So that's what we are actually doing here. So you can see this extension we implemented, and how did we do that? Simply just put this extension method, and you by default receive an parameter, and then in this there was something called button list in this object, which was having all the buttons, and I simply removed it from the collection and return finally my final output, which has one button lesser than what I got from SAP. As a result, SAP combined this with the standard and finally has only one button, only few buttons except the favorites button displayed on the screen. And how can you actually know about these extension points? It's very simple. You got to go back to Fiori app reference library again and check for every app what are all the different extension points for the view and controller. So let me go to the Fiori apps library, and there you can see, but may not be all requirements you may not be able to fulfill with these extensions, guys. So you may have to look at the code and analyze little bit what can you fulfill with extensions, for what you probably need to use other ways, for what, like this was a very different example, timesheet app. That's why I took this example, and this was indeed one of the real-time example which one of my student have got in their company. So I thought it's good if I can cover this example, because this has a completely different flavor. They are creating fields dynamically, and we saw how to override the standard SAP functionality by putting the same name method in our custom controller. So let's come to timesheet app. Yeah, search for it, my timesheet, and then we go to implementation information, extensibility, and now you can see UI controller extensions and S31 controller, and you see these are all the three extension points they have. Yeah, and if you see, we have implemented one of the extension point of this method. The name of this is change header footer options. I think it's not there. I think maybe we are using timesheet, manage my timesheet app, maybe not my timesheet app. So let me see this one, and if I just come here, extensibility, no, maybe I think we may be using this one. Let me check, guys, which version exactly we are using really. So yes, I think we are using this one again. Looks like the controller name is different. It's S1. Which one we used? S31, and the name is ext hook change footer buttons. Which is the hook name here? No, this is also not the right one, guys. So maybe what happened is, if you look at here the versions of this app, it's applicable for different versions. So in S4HANA, so there are different lines of business SAP has. The same app is delivered with SAP S4HANA and Business Suite also. So maybe I switch to Business Suite and check, uh, because my implementation here maybe is for Business Suite. So let me check here, and yes, I think we can find it. No. Then maybe I check this app. I should definitely be able to find this information based on the product. You can see again the delivery cycle here are available. So when this app was delivered, you need to probably select the right product version. Then only you can make a difference whether it has an extension point or not. And if it is, what is the name of extension point? So it has to match which app you're really modifying. You need to know that. So maybe I'll show you. Let me just quickly see, because I'm not sure which app I am modifying. So in this is also not the right one. You can see it's not really matching. Maybe I go here and select. Okay, I don't even have a version selection option here, but this will, sometime helps you. Still, if this doesn't really help you, what you can really do is just come simply select your extension app, go to tools and extensibility pane. This is the single point of truth. Even you are not able to find the information in the apps library, you can actually see it here. So if you expand this controller, you will find these hooks. See, extension hook change header footer options. How to, so I just foresee that probably SAP have given me an option to modify the footer buttons and you can see there was indeed an option. And the moment I use it, I check the parameter, what I'm receiving. I debugged it. I found there was a parameter. It had all the buttons in a collection. I removed the button from the collection. And finally, the returned object is what has become the main footer button. So they are dynamically creating the footer buttons. They're dynamically creating the input field in this app. And then I hook in my own functionality to modify the standard. Now, let's look at the next requirement. So next requirement is can enter the time for, okay, cannot enter the time for multiple days at one time. Okay, so basically now if you look at this app right now, user can select multiple days. See 13, 14, 15. User can select multiple dates to record the time and then can click on create button. They don't want it. They want the, either user, when user select multiple dates, either give an error message at that point of time, or you know let him select everything, but the moment he click on the submit button, you give him an error. Okay, because he can click on create. Let me just go back and show you again. So if I just go back, now user may select here multiple days. Let's say I selected, maybe I just go next, and maybe I select 14, 15, 16. I selected 3 days and I click on create button. So either you give an error message on clicking on create button. So you need to see for the first view which are all the options available. So you can see there are options. Now you need to also see which view is this or which controller is this, right? This is very important. So you need to know which controller is this. So switch to extensibility mode, select the calendar control, and you see it's part of S3, which means the controller will also be S3 only. So this is the controller now, and in this you see if there is a way to actually see the moment user click on create button, can I do some validation? Yeah, can I do some validation? So you can see in S3 controller, do you see guys any method which will get called on click of create button? Do you see any method which you can probably use, any hook method which you can probably use, which will get called before clicking create button? So possibly this change object before post, possibly, yeah, it may be possibly, but then if we foresee this, we need to be sure. So let's try implementing an exit point for this, a hook for this requirement. I select this, extend, and say extend UI controller hook. It will generate a custom controller again for me for this S3 controller, and it will take me to that. Yeah, so you can see it has created a custom controller for S3 controller as well. So let me remove the other ones so that we get a clarity here. And now you see it's also receiving you something called T. This is an object which is giving you. Now you can go back to standard controller, S3 standard controller, and see what is that they are sending you and when is that they are calling this hook. Yeah, so this is standard controller. I just beautify this and now I search for this hook. Okay, now I search for this hook, so I find it here. So now what they are actually doing is, let's see, set post object. They're creating a post object, guys, and this set post object is called when. Let me search this. So basically we need to connect all the chains. It's called here, and when, where it is called, it's called on submit time. So the moment you clicking on submit time, and when the submit time is called, let's see in the view, is it called on the create button click? So let's see when user click on create button, is that when they're calling the submit time method? Now as we also know, the buttons at the bottom are also created dynamically. So maybe the submit time button, the moment we are clicking on this button here, or where is that button gone, submit button, they are actually calling maybe this method. So we can cross check this. Okay, there is a submit button here as well, there is a create button. So I want to see maybe when the create button is called, and maybe a hook for that, or maybe a submit button. So the moment user click on submit button or create button, before that the data will not go to the backend. There I can throw an error message to the user that you cannot select multiple days, or guys, the moment user choose multiple dates here, 1 2 3, so I allow him to select one date. Okay, the moment he selects second date, I will throw him an error. Okay, that also I can do. So there are multiple ways of implementing this requirement. One way is you want to restrict multiple days. So one way is the moment he selects something, allow him, okay. But the moment he select a next day, okay, you restrict him, you don't allow the selection for the date. But the problem with this approach I'll show you is he can also choose things from the bottom and the calendar gets selected automatically. See, he can also select from the bottom and the calendar gets selected. So there are multiple things you may have to do it if you really want to restrict just by calendar. So you may not want to do that. Okay, so instead of that, the easiest and the best approach is anyways user has to click on this button here, guys, create button. Without this, user cannot submit a request. So let's see if this hook method which we have implemented is really being called when user clicking on create button or not. Okay, so maybe I have already implemented it here and I just put console.log and I say, wow, my custom code called, and we can also print what we are exactly getting in this T. Yeah, so you can say console.log and what are we printing it in the T. Save this. Okay, let's try this now. So we see, is it called on create button or is it called on submit button? We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. So maybe we will check this since we implemented this now. So refresh now and let's see. So basically we don't want him to record the time for multiple days together. Okay, that's what our requirement is. It cannot be fulfilled just by restricting him to select the calendar, because then you have to also restrict selection of multiple check boxes as well. So it's always better that you probably do it on create button, because without this create button he cannot really do it. Okay, so let's see 13th and 14th, and I just press F12 just to see if our console.log gets displayed to us on click of create button. If yes, then probably our hook is called. Click on create button and you see it hit the breakpoint. Of course that's okay, but I wanted to go back and check the console and see, did it really call our hook? No, it did not call our hook, which means maybe our hook is being called on click of this final submit. Okay, but anyways, even though he click on create, nothing goes to back. He has not yet click on submit, he has not yet recorded the time. So even our submit button may also help. So I select something and I select something as well here and I click on submit. Let me see. Now you see number of entries is 2, duration is 6. Okay, and I think data gets posted. Though there's an error from backend, that's fine, but really the data is going back to the system, guys. It's going back to the system, which means it doesn't really call our hook. So now we maybe there are multiple things. Either you don't allow him to click on create button if you find that he has chosen multiple days. So that also you can somehow check it. How? We need to now there is no hook which helps you with this. So we already checked it, that there is no hook method which is being called on click of create button. Let me also observe one more time, go into the extension points and see. So I go back to extensibility pane and check, is there any method which somehow gets called on click of create button? That's my intention. Okay, so I come here for S3 custom and see change header footer. That's okay. Alter columns. Alter columns will probably be for this table, guys, duration, status and time assignment. So this will also not help us. So none of these things will help us. So maybe we need to overwrite the functionality for create button. So when user click on create button, which method is being called, and that method's functionality I will override, and in that method I will check, I'll put a pre-check that if user is trying to record the time for multiple days, whatever he has selected, either multiple controllers or multiple checkboxes. I will restrict him uh, to move forward on click of create button if I find he has tried to record time for multiple days. Yeah, so I will override this particular create method implementation. So let me see which method, which is standard method is being used to actually handle this create button. So submit time is there. Let me see submit. On submit, do we have something related to create? Let me check. So here they are creating the buttons. Text is create. On add an entry. Let me check. So I'm basically trying to find what will be the name of the action for create, guys. That's what I'm trying to find. What will be the name of create button action name? So create button, copy, delete, submit. These buttons you have. I'm just trying to see which will be the action name for create button. I can't find it. So I may need to guess it. So let me just see all the methods. Maybe I again need to probably go for a guess, guys, just to see. On delete, load list, that's okay. Initialize table, load list without page data, load list with model, get target, get working day, time entry, week data, calendar week change, on add new entry. Maybe this may help. I don't know. Add new entry, or maybe let's see. Get timesheet calendar, update data, selected date. I feel it's on submit, guys. Find count, on item select, on item select, go to edit, on copy, check date, check field name, set post object, submit time, on submit. Maybe it is on submit, guys. Let me copy this on submit and override this. So I will just make a copy of on submit and see if this is being called. So I go to my custom controller now and put an implementation for this on submit. Yeah, I just put this on submit here. So this implementation will be called, let me just put this console log just to see if it is being called or not on click of create button. So I just put on create. Now it's calling my custom code similar to standard SAP. Yeah, save this. Let's try now. If it really calls my custom code, save this, come back, refresh the page. Let me see on click of create bit. So basically I, kind of looked at the controller of a standard SAP app and try to find out a place which is being, or a method which is triggering on click of this create button. Yeah, that's what I did. Press F12 and just clear the console and click on create button. Let's see if it works. I don't think so. I don't think so. You see, it's not hitting, which means we choose the wrong method. This is not the right method again. So we need to crawl back and check which is the right method. So let's see. We should be able to find, guys. Let me try. Open confirmation pop-up, get post data, parse date time, parse date, publish unique event, action offset. So basically, I'm trying to find out a method which is used for on create button. We can also do one thing. We can just go and check the trace, which method is called when user click on the button. Yeah, we cannot find from the view. We can find from the view easily, provided there is a button which is there in the toolbar directly. So if you look at the view here, these buttons are not created here in the page directly. They are being created dynamically. Okay, these buttons are being created dynamically. Yeah, that's why you cannot easily find it. It's not so straightforward. Yeah, so maybe I just say create. maybe I go to the standard, again search for create. So here you see they are creating these buttons, edit button, they are creating edit button. That's how they're creating this button. See, they're creating an object. In this, they are adding this edit button. On button press. They're adding a function on add entry E. Yeah, I think this is the action name. Yes, this is the one, guys. You can see how they are building it. If you come to the controller, let me show you now. I actually found out this is the one they are using. So if you see where they are creating dynamic buttons, they are creating the dynamic buttons here in this get header footer options method. Here they are adding these buttons one by one to a collection. And here they have also assigned on button press. When user click on this button, dynamically created button, add call this method on add new entry method. This is the method. I'm 100% sure now. Copy this and replace it in our custom controller now here. Over here, and you can also put a console log. Yeah, it is used when create was clicked. Save this. I found out. I come back and now I will just refresh my screen to reload the app, and then the moment I click on create button, I will see whether my console log displays it or not. So that's an action, custom action, guys, which I've overwritten this standard functionality. So now I maybe select some date and click on create. Oops, now there's an error. See, console log is not defined. I did a typo. Yeah, that's an issue with Web IDE. Really sorry. It types in multiple times same thing. So I'm sure, guys, it's working now. So it's now taking my custom implementation, overridden the standard functionality using my custom controller. Okay, so that's what has happened now. So let me click on create, and yeah, you can see it's used when create was clicked. So it's again a typical case number one, which I showed you at the beginning in the PPT, do something method and overwritten the functionality with my custom. So now I can go back and debug and also find how many days he has selected for posting the data. Yeah. So let's go back to the sources tab and we can actually debug our custom implementations for S3 dot controller, S3 custom dot controller, and you see on add new entry. I select it here, click on create. Okay, let me probably select this time 2 days, or maybe I can just find, you see, get selected dates. Here you have this, guys, get selected dates. So they're actually getting all the selected dates. So you'll get it in S. It's an array of 0 right now. Okay, now you see array of 0 and then get current date. So when the nothing is selected from it, it comes as the current date and it is setting the time. Let me now select 2 days and see what you will get in this array. Okay, so you should get something more. I go back and now I choose 2 different days for time recording. So 13, 14, 15. So more than one. Okay, and I click on create now. So click on create and now we see what happens. So I come inside, press F10, F10, and let's see this collection. See, since I selected more than one days this time for record the time, this array have got 3 entries. So now you know what you need to do. Anybody, what will you do to restrict the user, not allowing him to record the days for more than one day? Anybody? Absolutely. You just got to do an if condition now to check if this collection S variable, S is your collection, if this contains more than one item. If it contains more than one item, probably he has selected uh, more than one day entry. Yeah. So 12 will not come because I selected 13, 14, 15 only. 12 will not come into it because I didn't choose that. It was the default current date selection. If nothing remains into the table, it used the current date, which was ideally selected already. But Since I chosen it, it always overlook that and go with my selection. So it has got 3 entries now in this. So our idea is to just make sure that it has either 0 entry or 1 entry. Okay, it should not have more than 1. That's our idea, that's our condition, that's our custom implementation. So let's do that. So go back, we are very close to the implementation. So just go back here, and now what I'm going to do is just check this S. So I say if S dot anybody, how to check the number of records. Perfect, Karun has got it right. S dot length property is greater than 1. Okay, if it is greater than 1, so up to 1, 0 or 1, no problem. Anything more than 1 is a problem for me. Okay, anything more than 1 is a problem for me. So that's what I exactly don't want, anything more than 1. So let's do that. We can give an alert message, so we need a message now. Okay, we need a message box. So let's look at a standard controller. How are they loading the message API? We all know we got to write this for message API. You can see here they are using some APIs to load a message. So let me see how are they really using this. Cross application UI messaging. How are they loading alerts? Are they using alert? No. Confirm. Okay, we can go with our own knowledge what we have got in SAP UI 5. So what I do is just load the API for a messages. It's jQuery.sap.require sap.m.message box. I'm loading that, and I just got to give an alert to him. Boom. Please select only one day. And I got to just say return an empty thing. Yeah, just got to return out of this function. Don't execute the further code to perform anything. We are not navigating to the next view. We are not doing anything. No navigation. We're just returning a blank out of this method. Save this. We're done. Let's go back and test it now. Both the cases. Now you can also comment out this console log because it's violating SAP Web ID guidelines. We can save this, come back, and we can go ahead and simply test it now. So I just refresh. Any date which is selected, more than one day, if you try to select, guys, it will give you an error now. So I come back, it's loading. I try to select 13, 14, 2 days, click on create button. Boom, there you go. You got a message now. It won't also navigate to the next screen. It won't perform any OData operations as well. It will come out of the function, and then you see it still remains on the same screen. That's how you fulfill the next requirement which you had got here. Cannot enter the time for multiple days at one time, and that's what exactly we fulfill now. So all the requirements of our first app are now fulfilled. Now, relatively, guys, relatively, this app is a tough app. Timesheet app is little tough because they are dynamically creating the buttons, they are dynamically creating the input fields. But yes, if we learn the tough things, we can easily do the easy things. Yeah. So we did so. So we saw example for changing the complete view, changing the complete controller implementation, overriding the methods. We can also try out our knowledge for the hook method. So let me also try it on init here, the implementation which is there in the base class. On top of it, it will still execute. Okay, we understand it as of now. So if I write on init, it won't actually skip the implementation of base class like other things. So it will still execute my code along with it. Yeah. So if I say console.log, and cool, it works with standard code. So basically, if it would overwrite the onInit method, what will happen? Nothing will work, because in onInit they are doing a lot of initialization in standard code. Nothing will work if it really overrides it. But the hook methods are exceptions for this approach. It doesn't overwrite the hook methods, but it uses standard SAP hook implementation plus your code. Yeah, both gets executed together. So if you press F12 and just see this refresh, you will see your hook method will also be called. Yeah, so let me just show you after. Yes, you can see cool, it works with standard hook code. Yeah, so that's the message you've got. Now you can see alert have come, which means it triggered the initial method of the parent, which is nothing but the standard implementation, and it also triggered on top your code. Both got triggered. Yeah, so that's the requirement we fulfilled now for our first app end to end. Hope you guys understood this. Of course, to understand this, you all need to know the first course very well. You should be good in MVC. You should know the structure of UI5 apps, different artifacts. You should know the JavaScript. You should know, you should be good at looking and analyzing things. How are they really doing stuff in standard methods? And then you override these functionalities wherever needed. Now coming to the next step, approve timesheet app, we must have ability to prevent manager from approving future time. We can achieve this as well. Let me quickly show you now. So this is a different app now. Maybe we will just close this and I just uncheck and select my workspace, say file, new, extension project. I got to choose extension project, yes. And now I will choose the app which is approved timesheet. So let's say select application from ABAP repository and choose my app. Okay, I don't have a system here, so maybe I got to close this, leave this web IDE, and then go back and select the approval timesheet of app. So you see this approval timesheet app here, which has some records, and I got to edit this app this time. Yeah, so let this app open, and then we'll again open up web IDE from here to edit this particular app. So it's opening this app. You can see there are records into this, and do we have records for different dates? I think we don't have a record here for different dates. Okay, we don't have record for different dates here. February 6th to February 12th. Okay, we do have it. But how can a manager know? Now, one simple question is, the moment we restrict him to not apply, okay, the idea is to not approve something for future date. So now in this case, if you really look at, today is 12th of February. An employee can record a time in future. So employee can apply for employee can apply for timesheet, can record a time for future, saying that I will be on leave for these 3 days. So let me just record something of that sort. For future days, I will record a time for future days. It goes to my manager for approval, but manager should not be allowed to approve for future days. So let this app load, and I will request an approval for future days. So I just go for future, and I choose here 19th, and then say I want education leave, say create. Okay, I'll have a problem, guys, because I have adopted this application is okay. No problem. So let me just select something here and just choose here repair hours, WBS element. Actually, this app is pretty slow, but just somehow submit it. Okay, so now I recorded as an employee, I recorded a time for future. Okay, again there's an error. Okay, I think I selected a weekend. Maybe I select 21st. Hmm. Okay, the backend setting only exists for 2015, guys. So I think I will not be able to record the time for 2017. But idea is we don't want a manager to approve time for future. How can you restrict that? So let's go back to this app, which is approval app. Maybe I'll take this example in a different way, um, for a certain date range probably. So you can see here there are these date ranges uh, for every week, like from 6th February to 12th February, 13th Jan to 5th of February. You have these weeks here. So when a manager come to a week and try to click on approve, okay, let's select this and click on approve button. I will check what is the date, and this date, if it is greater than the current date, I will not allow him to approve. Instead of that, I'll show him an alert message again, say approval will not be allowed. So let's do this extension now to restrict or to fulfill this requirement where manager cannot approve the time for future days. So anyways, he has to choose this checkbox, right? So the moment he click on approve, what I'll do is I will loop through these records. I check the date. If it is greater than current date, I will give him an error. So let's click on the settings button, go for develop apps, and we will now select extension for this app. You can see extend approve timesheet app on the top. Yeah, click on launch web IDE to implement the extension project for this particular app from the scratch once again. So let's see. So we need to now find out the code for this button, which is approve button, and I think this one should be easier than the last one. So I will also import the actual application together along with the extension project and click on OK. So you can see it's importing both the apps now and also creating an extension project for my approval app. So it has got imported the timesheet app, actual timesheet app, and also created an extension project for me for the timesheet app. That's how the web IDE can really help me. Yeah, it's better than Eclipse, guys. In Eclipse, you cannot really use extensibility pane, especially web IDE is designed to support extension projects. So now go to tools, extensibility pane. It will load first the preview mode where you can look at all the data as it is. Of course, you need to have an access to OData services to really perform the extensions for the app. If you don't have, of course, your preview itself will fail. You will not be able to navigate to the right page or right view. You should have authorizations. Your customizings in the backend should be there, especially when you're using HR app. You have to be mapped to proper org units. Yeah, then only you'll be able to see the data, otherwise not. So now you can see the dates are there. Feb 6th, when user do a checkbox selection, click on approve. So there are two ways you can really do it. The moment you click on checkbox, you can give him an error by checking the date. This is one way. And then other way is the moment you click on approve button, that time you can give him an error. So these are all the multiple ways you can address the same requirement, guys. Yeah. Now you got to see which one to use again based on the hooks available. Yeah. So you can see hooks. So extension hook fill list. One more way you can see they are fulfilling this. Okay. I don't know now which view is this. So let's first see which view is this before really looking into the hooks. So I click on extensibility mode and try to find out which view is this. So as I know now, it's S3 view. Let's go to S3 view extension points. So there are three extension points. One is footer buttons, create detailed model data, and one is hook view summary. Yeah, summary view, which is I think creating this table. So one more way is you can implement this hook and remove the records. Okay, remove the records which are greater than current date. This also is a good option. So manager won't even see those records which was applied by employee for future date. But that will again be a bad solution because then it will be treated like a bug. So sometime what may happen that employee would request a timesheet for a future day to a manager, and manager is not able to see that record. Then manager may see that there is a problem with the app. So that can be treated like a bug, that will be interpreted by user as a bug in the system. So instead of that, you don't touch the data, don't touch removing the data. Instead, give him an error message, educate them with the right guidance. Okay, so let's go with the approach number one, where the moment we click on approve button, we will compare, we will see, and then based on that we will decide if whether we should allow to him to proceed or not. Or we can also look at here, you can see the week, or I think the right way is checking these dates, okay, on all the data records. That should be the right way. So to generate the template for the change, we first at least select one hook. That's always a better practice. Never try to replace anything. Just select a hook, let's say footer button, and just say extend UI controller hook, and it will generate the code. Now it actually generate two things. One is in your component of the custom extension project, it has written this setting where it is saying that I want to do a controller extension for this particular view, this particular controller. I want to replace it with this custom controller, this one. In this custom controller, now you have a hook. So I don't want a hook. Instead of that, I want to overwrite this approve button functionality. So let's look at it in the view, how the approve button is created this time. So I come to the view, S3 view, and just see, do they have static button, or again they have custom button. I don't see, again they have static buttons. They are actually using custom buttons. So maybe we go back to custom to the actual controller of it and try to see which is the button for approval button. Yeah, so now I say beautify. You see, the requirement is pretty straightforward. It says don't allow manager to approve anything for future time, whether it is vacation or anything else. Employee can apply vacation for future dates. We are not restricting employee to record the time for future date. We are restricting the manager to approve that time for future date. Okay, that's the requirement. This is for approval timesheet app, which is used by manager, not by employee. Okay, so manager cannot approve the future date times. Okay, that's the idea. We're not restricting the functionality for employees here. Now let's search for approve. See, approve button, yes, set enabled. They're just setting this approve button. I just got to search this approve more places where this action is there for this button. I want to see where exactly they're attaching the action for this approve button. Or maybe I just say footer, maybe something in the footer. They're really maybe creating this footer buttons. Yes, get header footer options. Here they must be creating this approve button somewhere. Yes, you can see this is the approve button. On press button, they are calling jQuery proxy, some function they are calling here. You can see they're actually calling some function here, and they're asking this confirm. So this is, again, they are not actually calling another method, guys. It's an embedded code. So I think I should override this complete get header footer option method. Yeah, so let me do this complete override for this particular method. So I copy this, go back to my custom controller and put this method over here. So now this will be used for the coding of my approve button. So when approve button will be clicked, what is happening is this function is getting called whenever user click on approve button. Now in this I will write my code. Okay, so I will probably check the data for the table, and if the table has a selection for a date which is a future date, I will just give him an error message. So now it's important for me to know the data. So let's see, how are they reading this data? Somewhere are they reading it? So they are already having some variable called D and R. I don't know these variables. How are these variables coming from? There are these D and R variables. You can see R is there, and there's something called D as well. Maybe we will debug this method and see is there any variable which contains this information of of checkbox selection or the table data basically. Yeah, that's what I want. So I will set up a breakpoint inside this var. So maybe I just put a debugger in my custom implementation and save this, and let's run this. Yeah, just run this approval extension app. So Karuna is saying that you can also set read only for all the dates. Yes, yes, Karun, this is also a good idea. You can set all the check boxes as read only. Um, yes, that's a pretty good idea. You can that this is also one more way you can really do it. So all the check boxes for the dates which are greater than current date, mark them disable. User will not be able to even check them. That's also very good idea. I like it. Just try that. So as I said, one requirement can be achieved by many ways. So now here you see we have got this. So I choose, let's say, two things and press F12. I want to basically debug now. So click on approve and you see it is hitting my debugger. So basically I've got my implementation triggered, and it's all up to your expertise of JavaScript code now. So I want to see now where can I read this information, what he has selected on the screen. So let me check. Can I get this information somewhere? Let me check in the console. So no. Can I get some data model through which I can really access this table data? So let me check standard implementation to see, is there any data model are they using to access the data which is there inside the table? So maybe I'll check this. So there's this method which they are using later point of time. We need to just see where is the table control, how they are using this table control, or we can also probably access this table object, right? So you can see the pending entries table. This is the ID of the table control. So let me just go back to the debugger and just try to access this object. Say this dot or sap.ui.getCore dot by ID, pass the ID of the table control. No, I am not able to get the object for that. Why? Why? I am not able to get the object. So just say this. Okay. Dot oview dot get by ID. Let me check. Yes. So you can see I can use this dot oview dot by ID and I can get the object of the table control. And yes, if I can get this, I can also access all the data of this table. So I can say this table object dot get me the model which is there for this table and get me the data. No, it's not working. Can this get me the model itself alone? It's undefined. So there is a model which is set to the table, but it's not the default model. There may be some named model which is set to the table. Let me check what's the name of the model, and I think it's A. The model name is A, guys. Yeah. So they have set a model with the name called A model to the table. So if I just do get model of A, no, it's not getting me anything. So maybe no problem. I just get cells. Can I get cells? I can't get cells as well. I just let me get only the table object right now into my variable. So I got to do some R&D, guys, and this R&D is really important. And as I am also doing it first time, I didn't really prepare for this class, and I just say my table. So I'm just doing some R&D again, my table, and you can see this is my table object again. I've got it. In this table object, I think we should somehow be able to access the data, guys. Yeah, let me check. Can I get the data for which is there inside my table? Can I get the data? models, parents. This is part of the view. Parent is propagated properties, binding context. Somehow I should be able to get the data, guys. Or can I get the values? Basically, user selected something. You can see here, I've got the table object. Am I getting the right table object again? Let me check. Is this the right table object which I've got? Pending entries table. Here is the table. Are there more tables? No. This is the only table we have. And you see items are being created by pending entries. Maybe we will try for this view getting this model A, not just for table. Let me try again, guys. This dot o view dot get model of A. Yes, this is the model which is binding the table, guys. And for this model, let me just say get properties. I think I should be able to get the data. No, I think it's not right. My API get property is the right API, which we learned in the last course. And yes, you see detailed model data collection, guys, which is getting you the records of the table. So you have two records here. You can see these two records you've got here in this detailed data model collection. So let me just come detail model data collection, and you see both the objects. Let me just go to each object now. First the 0th object, and in this you can see there are pending entries. So this is our first icon tab filter. See, week start and week end. You can actually use this week start and week end also, or you can go to this entries and see what user chosen. And I think we should get some checkbox column here as well. If user selected that entry, you can see checkbox state is true. See here. And if the checkbox state is true, you can see also the date. Yes, here it is, change date and change time. This is change time. And I think we should also get the date, work date. See, here is the work date. It's 6th of February 2017. Now, if this date is actually less than the current date, you can restrict. Yeah, so it's pretty easy. You can really got to research a little bit to get somehow this data. This is very important. Yeah, so in this now, first icon tab filter data dot pending entries. This has got the entries. Now you got to loop over these entries and get these each entry, and inside the each entry you got to check the checkbox value. So what is the value of the checkbox? If it is marked as true, which means he is trying to actually record the time for this or approve the time for this. Yeah, only provided he is doing checkbox equals to true. And if this is true, you got to compare the date. And I think in this case, Karun, your option, I find it more easier. Yeah, because I can actually do it, do control this at the view level. So let me see if there's a checkbox enabled. You see there is already an enabled property, main checkbox state. You can see main checkbox state. I can actually use this enabled property, Karun, to actually disable the checkbox. I like this approach, but you can also go with my approach where I have a comparison done. So first I check this for every entry if this is marked as true, and then I also compare the date. So all this code you can actually write in this. Yeah, so let's try to write a small snippet here to do this thing. Maybe I'll also show you what Karun is trying to see. Yeah, how it can be done. So maybe I just use this part and just go inside my code. Here is my code, and what I do is just say var all entries. Whatever entries I do see there, all the entries will come in this. I create a for loop. Okay, can web ID help me iterate over this array? See how it's generating the code and all entries, and now I can say all entries of I, every item, and let's go back. For every item checkbox, check the checkbox state, and if it is equals to true, I want to probably do a comparison of the dates because he's trying to now approve these particular dates. Yeah, I want to do a comparison, and then I can easily compare. Now you see guys, JavaScript is only put double equals to as comparison operator, but for web ID it is triple equals to as comparison operator. Yeah, that's what web ID follows. So checkbox state is equals to true, empty block statement. Yeah, now we will fill in this block and we will get the date value. So this is my work date value. It's in form of a string guys. As you can see, my work date value, I got to convert this into a date object. So let's say var date obj equals to new date of this, and say date obj. No. So how can I convert some date to a date object? Let me just do a Google on JavaScript, convert date to date object. How can we do that? So let's see how can we set the date, or maybe we can just try this guys. Maybe let me just do this, create a new date object, and then set that date as the date over there. So date obj dot set date, and then pump in this date here. Will this set the date? Get date. Yes, it has got. Oops, no, not really. So how can I really get a date compared? String dates in JavaScript. That's my idea. Yeah, I want to compare the string as a date. Compare string dates in JavaScript. How to compare two string dates in JavaScript? Yes, this is what I am looking for. Let's come down. You can see here this date.parse, and they're putting both the dates in this and then just comparing it. This is the way you can compare it. So use date.parse and get it into D1, and then your current date over here you can get it into D2 and then check it. So let's try this out in the console directly. So say var D1 equals to date.parse and just pass 2017. Let's say I put 2nd February 2017, and I use a D2 which is today's date. So I create a var D2 equals to new date. This gives me the current date. Okay, now I check if D1 is greater than D2. Let's see what result we do get, and say console.log. Wow, it didn't print. Let me just put this. No, it's not working. None of the cases giving me console output, which means there is something wrong. There's something wrong. Maybe I just say compare string date with current date in JavaScript. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Yeah, to be very precise. So I come here, compare string with today's date in JavaScript. Very good. There may be an answer for this. It's a very preferred language. So you see now they're getting this over here for the date, and then Q is the new date. They're getting DDMMYY new date here. Okay, maybe I just copy this whole piece of code to just do a compare. Yeah, let me do this guys as a reusable method in my web IDE. So I put compare date, and in this I will receive an input function, the date selected. This will be a string format, and then I would just write, paste the logic completely. So what it does, it gets the current day. So what is today's date? For that month, date and year, it gets into a new date object, and then it also gets this, it prepares this date object. So I just say date dot parse, and then get this date selected, what user selected. So what I have got is my date and then actual current date. Both I do have, and if the today's date, the current date, okay, the current date is greater than, um, it's greater than the date which is absolutely fine. Okay, I would just say return blank. This is absolutely okay, there is no problem. But if at all the current date is less than the date which user selected, which means he's trying to approve a timesheet for future, I return an X. Yeah, and if I do get an X as an output, I'm just going to fold this up. Yeah, if it is greater than, okay, what is this, and it is not defined. Okay, let's declare this var my date. Yeah, now if it is returning X, guys, I'm just going to throw an error message. So for every entry, I'm going to make a call to this reusable function called compare date, and then based on that we will take up a call. So I'm going to make a call to this compare date. So now it's also important that we pass the controller object to this. Oops, this will be a challenge. Maybe I just put this whole code from here to this, and let me just do this. Yeah, maybe it's, I know I'm doing a dirty programming, but let me just do this right now. So what I do is, in this I have put this entire code where I get this current date, and let me just take this date entry over here, whatever is that current date which we've got in the object dot, which date he is trying to record the time for. And let's see, it's work date. Yeah, here it is. So work date is what user is looking for time. So now we are comparing, and if you find yes it's this, so what I just say here is continue for the next loop pass, and for this case I will throw an error message and return out of this function. Just got to give an alert, cannot approve for current date. So this implementation will work, but right now we are not allowed to record the time as per the backend setting in 2017. So let me right now hard code the date as, let's say I should not be allowed to approve the time more than, let's say for certain time. Okay, so maybe February 6th is what is available here. Maybe what I will do is I will just change it to 1st of January 2017. Okay, 1st January 2017. So I will hard code this month, date and year. So year is 2017, month is 1st. Maybe we got to check this, guys, and just try it here, 01. Save this. So for 1 2017 I've hard coded right now as the date above which the approval should not be allowed. Okay, that's what I'm doing. So let me just do this. Okay, cool. So anything above than 1 2017 you should get an error message. So you can also just load this library like we did in the last example, loading the message library jQuery .sap.declare, sorry, require dot message box, and we will throw the error message. We'll throw the alert. Return alert not allowed to approve future time. Yeah, that's the error we will throw and come out of this function. We will not proceed anything at all. We just say return. Fine. So that's what we are doing. This function which is getting executed returns out. No navigation takes place. No post call goes to the backend system. Save this, and even the confirmation message will not be thrown to the user in this case. Come back. We can test it and see what happens. I'm not sure whether it will work because I got to debug and make sure that I put the right code, but you must be getting a feel of how exactly it can be done. Yeah, so now I choose this. Let's press F12 and try to debug what happens. Maybe our date logic may cause a problem, but we need to just see what happens. So come here, put a breakpoint and click on approve button, and you see it has come here. It has got two entries. It will go inside and check for check boxes. What is that which we are trying to approve? Now it creates a date, and it has got two date. One is 1st February and one is this date which is null right now. You can see why it's null. Work date. What is the work date? I think I did a mistake in typo. All entries. No, it's there. I'm not sure. Maybe I got to split this to convert to a date. Maybe let me try. Will this give me a date object? So basically I need to obtain the date object out of it. You can see not a null. It's producing nan, not a null, which means it has not created really this thing. No. So I need to basically see how to convert a string to a date again. So convert in JavaScript. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we should use set date. Yes, you're right. Okay, let me try here. So var od equals to new date dot set date, and let's see if I just pass this whole thing inside this. Will this give me a date object? No, it's not giving me the date object, guys. There is an error. Okay, unexpected token. It's typo issue. So let's try. Yes, I think, and let's see OS. Yes, you're right. So we'll use this one now, but it has got 26th March. I don't know. How come it has got 26th March? This is bad. I don't know how it has got 20, but though I did not set really 26th of March. What date I really set was this one. How come it has got 26th March? No. It's incorrect way of creating the date object. So maybe I just need to exactly see the code, guys, in JavaScript how to get the date object from YYYYMMDD. Let me see. So right now dot to string slice 0 to 10 replace this something they're putting it here. Let me check this one what it gives. So this is the other way around. It's converting a date to a YYYYMMDD. I want YYYYMMDD to be a date object. Let me try this. It's not working. But maybe what I do is just blindly give a if condition. Of course, you got to research little bit, guys, about this. Let me right now just try to make this condition fail. So 2 is greater than 5. So this condition will fail now. Right now I'm putting a hard-coded condition, so it goes here and it won't allow user to approve the time. Yeah, of course you got to learn this date thing. Even I too not sure, I'm not a good expert of comparing dates in JavaScript, but you got to learn a little bit. Just try some research. It will be easy to get this date converted. If not, then you can split this string based on 4 characters, 2 characters and 1 character to extract out the month, date and this thing. Okay, I got some code here from Karun. Let me try this code if it can really help. Yeah, that's what Karun has done. He has splitted it and then created the date object out of it. So maybe we can try that. So here we go. This is what Karun have done. Thank you, Karun, for this, and I will now just get this happen. So this is a date string. It is splitting year, month, date, and then it has got a date object. I don't know why are you removing month -1. You should ideally not do that. It's not the current month, and then you got this date here, then current date, new date. Okay, now this is the date which you've got now finally from this, and now I don't want this one, my date. Let's put it here. Let's put the comparison now. If my date which I've given is greater than the current, or it's greater than 1st of February, yeah, if it is greater than 1st of February, fine. If it is not, or maybe I think you should do other way around. So my date is the date which we have on the screen, which is, let's say, some more than February 1. And now I'm comparing. If it is greater than February 1, you should fail this condition and this message should come. Let's save this and test it. I think it should work now. You can just say, okay, anyways, you can see it's working. It's giving me an alert pop-up, but now it will work seamlessly because you've hard-coded the date to 1st February. So it loop through all the records. It checks if the current date is greater than 1st of February, and then it gives an alert message to the user. So now it has got it here. You can see, just press F10, 1st February, and now you got the date object. Yes, you can see. But again, you see, Karun, I think this logic is again not working. It's giving 6th of March, though it's February right now. Not sure, some problem. And then it goes to else condition. You can see it's throwing this message, alert message to the user. The message comes up and then it comes out of the function completely. Yeah, and you see alert message to the user. It's adding some month. Yeah, you're right. It's adding 1 month into it automatically. So maybe some JavaScript code snippet would fix that issue. But you can see our main requirement, user cannot really, the manager cannot really approve the time for future date. But I really like your idea of disabling the checkbox. You can do it with the help of formatter concept, or by changing the data on fly. You saw the binding, how it is being done. Try out these things. You can really try it out. So this way you can fulfill all the requirements. There is one more. When an employee submits a time that has been changed after approval, there must be some indicator on the screen to prompt the manager to pay closer attention to that line item. So when an employee submits time that has been changed after approval, there must be some indicator on the screen to prompt the manager to pay closer attention to that timeline. So this is something, a critical requirement. We really need to see that how it can be done. But yes, of course, you can try these things and do it. So that's about extensibility concept. Hope you understood now today how it can be done, what are all the different ways, especially for controller extensions, overwriting the method and putting your own functionality in the middle. Try to see if you can always make use of hook methods, what SAP gives. If not, then you should always try to target replacing only the method where you want your code to be done. Okay, with that, it's a wrap on today's class. In next session, I think we will close our course with the last topic, or I think there are two more sessions. One is deploying an app, custom Fiori app end to end into the ABAP system and creating a launchpad tile for that. And then finally, we'll talk about KPI tiles. So there are two more sessions. I think we already crossed 20 hours, but yes, I think there are two more things which we need to discuss. And yes, I also remember your requirements which you guys have given me. One was workflow integration. Second was OData a notion concept. And there was one more concept which I remember about analytical apps. So out of these three requirements, I will see which are all I can cover with the given infrastructure. So I need to check the infrastructure. If infrastructure supports me to do these requirements, I would love to cover all these three requirements for you guys. Yeah. So these three requirements I still remember. You asked me. Yes.
Uh, Anubhav,
Mm-hmm.
there is one more thing I want to
Mm-hmm.
regarding the My Inbox app of the Fiori. Can we integrate it with the BPM? BPM, what we have developed, the WebDynpro Java and all integrated. Can
So
we?
of course, see, one golden rule is you need to talk to OData service. Okay. So
Yeah.
BPM WebDynpro app, it's ABAP WebDynpro. So you have an ABAP code running underlaying the WebDynpro app. You need to create an OData service. Okay, and that OData service is what you really need. Now, one more golden rule, as you remember, we cannot have more than one service connecting to a Fiori app. So what you need to do is you need to enhance the My Inbox OData service. Okay, create an enhancement for OData by overwriting it, and then add new entity set to it, which is talking to some more entity set, which is providing you extra data which was there in WebDynpro. Yeah, and call the WebDynpro wala logic in that ABAP code, and then expose all the data through OData service and use that custom OData service with your Fiori app. And then of course you
Uh,
can make a call to it and
no,
Mhm.
I mean the BPM which is right now in the Java stack and everything. So
Okay.
is that possible? Because the Fiori is means we don't have any Java stack over there in the Fiori. So
That is
how it
also
will be?
possible. That is also possible. I want to ask you where your data resides. Does it really resides in another other database other than SAP?
No,
No,
no.
the data resides in SAP system. What is Java WebDynpro? It is just a presentation layer.
Yes.
Yes. So the data which you're displaying in BP and in WebDynpro Java app is coming from ECC system. You need to look back ECC system APIs, which is providing the data to this BPM Java app, and create a OData service, a new entity set, which provides the same data to Fiori app through the OData. There is no way you can talk to a SOA service or directly a BAPI call or a method call into the ECC backend. You got to implement entity set, you got to implement OData, and as you know, the golden rule, one Fiori app uh, has to talk to one OData service. You cannot have multiple one. So you need to inherit from the standard service, add new entity sets, right? Call the BPM logic into it, and then expose this data over OData and keep this custom OData service like I showed you in last to last session how to connect custom OData service with our Fiori app in extension project. So you do that, with that you'll be able to access this data, and then you can create your own view, whatever you like, wherever you want to display this data using OData calls. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe see guys, there are too many things. Okay, there are too many things. There's no end to it, no end to these requirements. Yeah, but I'll try to cover as much as possible what comes to my purview. So now you guys have given me more requirements, though I haven't planned for these, but I thought it's really good because a lot of companies are using workflow scenarios with Fiori apps. So it's a good practice if we do some kind of that thing. And then a lot of companies using analytical apps. So maybe I'll just try to put some lights on it. Then I also wanted to show you, the hybrid apps like camera integration, such kind of functionalities with the hybrid app. So maybe I keep that also in my mind. So there are a lot many things. So if I do get some new requirement, I may need to cut short because time is limited. We already crossed 20 hours now. I got to really look at these things individual perspective and see what is most important for me to cover, because I did not really design this course initially. Yes, Git is also pending. I agree, Deep. So I did not really design this course initially by keeping the number of hours 20 or more than 20 hours in my mind, but really as and when I proceeded I realized, okay, maybe this also I cannot miss, this also I cannot miss, this also I cannot miss, and it really extended the hours. So give me some time. I got to readjust a little bit here and there and try to come up as many topics as I can also include. No, don't pay for extra fee. That's my commitment. I've already given to you. I will try to cover it. Yeah. So I don't need extra fee for that.
Anubhav, there is one thing that I was trying to develop one hybrid app with the help of HANA Cloud, but uh, means there are means options are available over there that's showing that okay, this will be through this we can deploy it through the hybrid, but means it's kind of disable with the HANA Cloud platform trial account. So it means what have you tried anything like that?
I have tried it. I'll show you camera integration, but it will not
Okay.
use the Cordova plugins because hybrid apps. I'm also not sure in the trial account whether they do allow it, but we'll use browser APIs to integrate camera. Okay.
Okay, we don't need to means make our setup for the Cordova and all means what we
Not
have
needed.
actually
Not needed. Not needed.
when we are going with the HANA Cloud, so it will be doing all
It
this thing.
even with this web ID you can actually integrate camera. I'll show you that example. Camera integration I'll show you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
they use the capsule also, means the offline and everything.
These things, this much of deep we will not go for offline access, for creating a native app, creating an APK file, registration of the app, signing up the app to deploy it into the Android marketplace. This much deep we will not go. Just see an example of simple hybrid app with the camera functionality.
No, I'm just asking means means if you have checked anything means whatever the functionality is there for.
There are a lot of functionality. So usually what they do have is they do have a server where they install these APIs, Cordova APIs, and that becomes the, just like if you work with Adobe Forms in Git in web with WebDin Pro. So there's a ADS service, Adobe Document Service, which is responsible for uh, managing all the PDF related tasks in WebDin Pro. Similar to that, they have a server where they need to install these APIs, and from there, hybrid development toolkit is being taken. Yeah, I'll try to see if I can find the infrastructure. This is the biggest challenge. You don't get infrastructure for trial purpose, and I cannot show infrastructure of my clients where I did these things. Yeah, because it will not be right. So in trial accounts, you don't have infrastructure. In productive accounts, I cannot really show it. But unfortunately, I have got one server. Um, so 7.5, thanks to one of our student, I will just try to see what is that server is supporting maximum, and maybe try to include some example from there. Hmm?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sir, sir, this is Bob from New York.
Yes, yes,
I'm
Bob.
working on a project. I'm working on a project, smart buildings. So we are working on a project that we are all the building sensors to integrate into these different tiles. When the building engineer or a whole 100-story building, for example, right now working on the power generation, power consumption, and we're trying to estimate the demand for the next day, next couple of days. So based on that, we are going to buy the power from the grid or from off market. So here my challenge is to integrate that energy thing to this one. So can you have like maybe not now, maybe next week sometime. So how to integrate those sensors?
So
The
that's called
data, sensor
IoT
data.
apps. It's called IoT apps. IoT apps is also not planned for this course. I'll There are too many things, man, guys. Please try to understand. I'm also not that expert. I'm good in building front end. I'm good in doing gateways things. I never did IoT, Bob. Believe me.
Oh, okay, no,
Never.
no problem.
It's called
I'm just
IoT.
trying to.
Okay, it's called
Hope is there.
IoT.
Right now, it's not there. Maybe next 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so and also my personal interest. I'm working the new smart city in Amravati, in Andhra Pradesh. So they're coming with a new capital city. So there is a smart buildings. Everything's being designed. So I thought, okay, some kind of helpful there as my personal project. So I'm
Okay.
just curious.
That's good. That's really good. See, but the core Fiori expertise is what you need. MVC will never not change whether you're building IoT or a hybrid app, or you're building a native application, you're building a custom, or you're changing a standard with a new version. Nothing changes. The core framework remains UI5 framework. XML view won't change. Binding won't change. Formatters, fragments, UI5, controls, libraries, controller code, init, on after rendering, before rendering, exit. These things won't change, guys. This is the bottom line. It won't change. So keep
No,
that
no,
in
I
mind.
understood. Understood. The thing is, how to bring that integration, the data, that wireless sensor data that is sitting in database, how to bring that exiting, which is external to this Fiori. So how to bring that as a
Mm-hmm.
pull the data. That's my
Okay.
challenge.
Okay.
Some
Okay.
interface is
Fine.
missing.
Maybe I'll just try to see. Um, okay. First of all, what I will do, guys, is I will try to focus completing this course. Okay. And then there are these 4 additional requirements, 5 indeed. One is hybrid application development toolkit. One is this IoT integration. One is workflow scenario. And then we have about analytical apps. And then you're talking about Git repository, which is missing right now, and deploying in custom app into the backend system, and then creating a tile for that and giving access from the launchpad with the custom catalog and custom group. These things is what is pending, and I don't know how much. There is no end to this course if we keep adding the topics. So I will try to see if I can give you some glimpse about it, but really try to understand that even I'm new to this, and there are a lot of innovations happening around the industry. And if you ask me as Anubhav, I'm also learning these things from you. When you come over with some questions, I also go back and read about it, and then I get some idea about it. So, but you may not expect me, be an expert in all the areas. I'm not an IoT expert, may not be even analytical expert. And now for analytical apps, you need HANA and data modeling. So I'm not an expert there. So I don't know how can I really do it. And then there is this concept of CDS view, which is a concept of ABAP on HANA. So I don't know how to model the CDS view and then take out this abstraction of data into an analytical app displaying the charts. I'm not aware of it. So these are all the things which there is a lot of background work which I also have to do. I need to learn a BAP on HANA. I need to learn data modeling in HANA, um, the creation of calculation views, analytical privileges, and then you have native HANA Access apps. There's a lot of learning which I also as a trainer have to do in order to really make you understand. Otherwise, if I promise you to cover these things, it will be incomplete knowledge. Okay, I will not be even able to convey it properly to you. So that's the whole thing, guys. I am afraid to touch upon these topics. Okay, because I may not be
Sir,
able to
sir,
convey
if
the
you
right
cover,
idea.
that's all. So those are all backend topics. If you cover,
Hmm.
if you're trying to learn all that one, you are called a solution architect.
Hmm.
But if you want to go where you want to go, you carry 2 years from now, 5 years from now, if it's app development or like a solution architect,
So what
that's
I'm
where
doing,
we are going
believe
to.
me, what I'm doing today, I'm not at all free with that itself. I have to teach people first Fiori. I'm not at all getting time to learn these things myself because I'm a corporate trainer, and my job is not to, do this or reach some position in a company as a solution architect or an architect. Really not that. My job is to right now make people ramp up with basic things. Okay, and ramp myself up. And what I covered, so far in this course, guys, I have also learned this in last kind of 1 year. That's my learning, and I've started a course out of it. And now, current learning, I'm right now focusing on a BAP on HANA. So maybe you never know, I will start a course on a BAP on HANA and HANA Access. These two things are right now in my portfolio. As a trainer, I'm learning. So maybe I will be soon launching courses for that as well, but may not be fitting to the need what you have today, be the IoT app or an analytical app or something else for that matter. So we will go by course content, guys, first, and then we will see if I can touch upon these special requests what you have. Okay, so that's it for the day. Thank you so much. Sorry for extending about 20 minutes. Goodbye. See you next week.